we hear this notion that consciousness is not enough, there's a number of ways we might interpret it. One way, perhaps the first way we would look at it, is that it's not enough to be aware. We need to take action. Usually this is taken in the ordinary external sense. We can't just see that something's wrong or something's about to go wrong. We need to take action to correct it, to fix it, whether that's in our personal life or in our life in our family or society, through political action, kindness, humanitarian, charitable action, the simple actions of maintaining our body and our family, cooking, eating, and all the rest. So we have to act. We have to be active to live in this world. So simple consciousness is not enough in that sense, certainly. But even on this action score, there's another sense that there's an interaction that's also important, that's vitally important. There are inner levels to the world, inner ways of working that we could learn and that we do learn through meditation and other spiritual practices, through prayer and so on. So this is the first sense that consciousness is not enough, that we have to act. We are put on this earth to do something, not to just sit. Although sitting helps us be able to do something. In fact, we can do something while we sit. But let's leave that for the moment and go on to another sense that consciousness is not enough. Now, this sense has to do with stopping too soon on the spiritual path. The notion that the be-all and end-all of our spiritual work is to attain consciousness. So, first let's look at what we mean in that context by consciousness. It does not mean our ordinary awareness. Our truly ordinary awareness is really only half aware because we live on autopilot so much of the time. We're lost in our thoughts. We hardly notice what goes on around us. If we look at it truthfully, how we are during so much of our day, we find that we live on autopilot. Setting that aside, there are many moments where we are aware of ourselves and our surroundings. We're aware of what our senses bring us. We see what we see. We hear what we hear. We're aware of what we feel, what our body touches, so on. That kind of sensory awareness is also not what we mean by consciousness. We'll call that sensory or sensitive awareness. And it has its own level of energy because we can associate a particular level of inner energy with each of these kinds of states. With the first state of autopilot, we associate what we call the automatic energy. With this sensory awareness state, which is what we usually think of as when we're conscious, but we won't call that conscious, we'll call that the sensitive energy, the sensitive state. Now, different than that is the state of consciousness, or what we might call pure consciousness. This is awareness without content. It is the awareness behind content. So if all our senses bring us our thoughts, our feelings, our sights, what we see and hear and smell and taste. All that content is within a context, and that context is our consciousness. Perhaps the quickest way to come into consciousness, to gain the taste of consciousness, is through silent meditation, through just sitting, seeing what's going on, mindfulness. So when we're mindful of all the content passing through our mind, and when we're quiet, it's mainly thoughts, assuming that our eyes are closed and there aren't powerful fragrances in the area, and we're not eating. So it's mainly our thoughts, and if it's a quiet place, not so much sound either. So we see our thoughts, we notice our thoughts, we're aware of our thoughts. But we're sitting quietly and we let our thoughts come and go. And then they slow down, and we notice between our thoughts there's these gaps. There are gaps where there's nothing, or what seems to be nothing. So we go exploring. We explore into those gaps between thought, behind thought. And we start to see, to feel, to experience a spaciousness. There is this space around and behind thoughts. And then we notice that that space surrounds us, not just our thoughts, but it is our awareness itself. It is our consciousness. It's a cognizant stillness. This is consciousness. It surrounds us, permeates us all the time. But we're not aware of it all the time because we're distracted by all the content. Our attention goes to our thoughts, to what we see, to what we hear, to what we're doing with our body. And we lose contact with that cognizant stillness, with that peaceful spaciousness, with our consciousness. So this pure consciousness, this cognizant stillness, is what is meant by the term consciousness, at least in spiritual discourse. Now, as I said at the beginning, there's this tendency to stop at consciousness, to think that this is the end of the spiritual path, because, after all, it is infinite, it is utterly peaceful, it's magnificent. It seems like when we enter consciousness, when we taste consciousness, we have arrived. And when we work with it more and more, we find that it's available to us at any time, not just when we're sitting. We can open to it during our day. It's just a matter of relaxing inwardly to be in that while we're doing whatever else we're doing. So it's not an either or. Either we're conscious or we're doing something, or we're conscious or we're thinking. The thoughts can come and go. The sensory impressions can come and go, like clouds passing through the sky, but they don't obscure the sky. The sky is still there, the sky of our consciousness. But this is not the goal, the end goal of the spiritual path. And the reason it's mistaken for that is because it's so easy to conflate will and consciousness. But they are different. Our will is our I. It's our ability to choose. It's our ability to pay attention. So you can see this. When you pay attention, you're directing your awareness. When you're paying attention to this video, you focus your awareness on this video. When you read, you focus your awareness on the words and their meaning. When you drive, you focus your awareness on the road and the other cars around you. This ability to focus our awareness is not the same as the awareness itself. Consciousness doesn't do anything. It is aware. Our will is what does things. It is who does things. It is who we are. So you can ask the question, who is conscious? Who sees what you see? Who thinks what you think? Who is aware of your thoughts? Who is aware of what you taste? Who smells the fragrances? Who moves your body? You do. Your I, your will. It's not your awareness, not your consciousness that does these things. So, there is a difference in kind, in fundamental character between will and consciousness. Our I is our will. Consciousness is an energy. Our I uses our energies, not vice versa. And will is what the deeper realms beyond consciousness, the deeper spirit, is all about. For example, the realm beyond consciousness can be called the realm of the sacred light. And to open to that is a process of contemplative prayer, silent contemplative prayer. Although words, inner words, can help point us in that direction, which is the direction of depth, the direction beyond consciousness. How can you go beyond consciousness? It seems so all-encompassing. It seems to be in every direction around you. It surrounds us. It permeates us. We live in a sea of consciousness. How can we go beyond it? This takes exploration. It's where a scientific attitude, an experimental attitude toward our inner work comes in. And in particular, we look to our I as a clue, as our rope. We look to our attention, and we look for where our attention comes from. We trace back along our attention toward its root. We trace back the radiance. The source of our attention takes us into this deeper realm of the Spirit, the realm of the sacred light, beyond consciousness. Now, some say that consciousness is God. This is a misconception. In fact, even this realm of the sacred light is not God. God lies beyond that. God comes to us from beyond that. But this I of ours, this will, connects us with the divine will. We could think of the divine as will. So the divine can enter us as our will, as us. But this is not our ordinary sense, to be clear. This is when we are purified of ourselves, when our ego is gone. There can be no self-centeredness. In fact, self-centeredness and egoism stand directly in the way, block the path of that purity, of that flow of will from the deepest recesses of the Spirit. Now, another way that consciousness is not enough is that it's unstable. Our connection with it is unstable. So how do we stabilize it? Well, in the spiritual path, it doesn't work to cut corners, to try to skip stages, try to skip developing our soul at each level. And so, the level, as you recall, below consciousness is the level of the sensitivity, the sensitive energy, sensory awareness. To develop ourself on the level of sensitivity, we can practice sensing our body. What does that mean? So you can do an experiment right now, if you like. Placing your hands on your palm down on your legs or on your knees, assuming that you're sitting. And putting all of your attention in your right hand. And keeping your attention there. It's not just thinking about the hand, but being in the right hand. So I'm aware of all the fingers. The palm, the back of the hand, the whole hand. Now, I won't take the time in this video to continue with this. But when you're practicing this on your own, you can practice for a little longer. But at this point, perhaps this is long enough. You have your attention in your right hand, and you can notice now the difference in perception, difference in your perception between your right hand and your left hand. Your right hand may be more alive, warmer, more vibrant. This is because holding your attention in your right hand has drawn the sensitive energy into it. You're sensing your right hand, whereas not so much in your left hand. And this process of sensing our body can be built up very strongly. We can go from sensing our hand, right hand, to our right foot, our left foot, our left hand, our right arm, our right leg, our left arm, all four limbs, and then our whole body, including our torso and head. But with the caveat, we don't try to sense particular inner organs like our liver or spleen or heart, so as not to interfere with their instinctive functioning. So we come to the point, through practice, through much practice, where we can sense our whole body, and not just in sitting meditation, but in walking, in moving around during the day, in doing other things that we do. We learn to sense our body. We learn to build up the sensation in our body. And this sensation, when it is strong enough and complete enough and smooth enough through our whole body, creates a platform. And from that platform, we can start to become more conscious. When we're sensing, if we then open ourselves, open our awareness to be in consciousness, to be in that cognizant stillness, it has a place. We can stay in it for a little longer. And then by practicing being conscious, practicing being in that spacious peace, that pure awareness, we explore for what can be beyond that. We can see our attention more clearly, and we can see toward its roots, trace back its radiance, and open ourselves deeply to the realm of the sacred light, to a higher energy, which can come flooding into us. So these three, sensing, the sensitive energy, the conscious energy, and the energy of the sacred light, these are three levels we can work toward being in. But again, consciousness alone is not enough. I think for now I'll stop there. Thank you.